三请教书两件孙 and welcome to The Way of Conscious Mindfulness, a weekly podcast and YouTube show discussing spirituality and science, blending health and well-being with mind, body and spirit, with a Taoist twist. The Tao means the way, the path. So this is not the normal talk show, surprise, surprise. Each week we have either a guest or we have a subject. This week we have a guest that's been on before. And our aim each week is to have an open discussion to help us all find new skills, new techniques, new balances for our own personal way or path. Now, as always, on this epic journey, I have some co-hosts. Now, this week, we've just got one co-host. It's just me and Agent 35. It's just two co-hosts this week. At the moment, Robbie may turn up any second. He may be channeling right at this moment, and he may suddenly appear, the Scottish wonder. But Chris, a.k.a. the questioner, he is not about this week. He is doing Tai Chi. He's off doing some mystical stuff, Tai Chi. Probably asking some very interesting questions, and putting his Tai Chi teacher in a fluster, probably. But I digress. And Michelle, I think Michelle is off somewhere too. We haven't seen her for a couple of shows. Anyway, so firstly, how are you doing? Are you okay?
I am fantastic, thank you. How are you?
I am good. All is well. We've had a little only on guests, because actually last week's guest was supposed to be this week's guest, but last week's real actual guest I couldn't find. So this week's guest went to last week, and then last week wasn't about for this week. So I found a replacement. And the replacement is, and the show today is The Way of Fred Bleach. Now, Fred has been on the show before. Fred is actually my sifu of a certain technique, and I am his. I am learning from him back care and back correction. It was the one thing in the system when as a barefoot doctor and druggy dog shaman, but especially in the barefoot doctor side, it's the one thing that my teachers never got round to. As if by magic, he appears. It's the mighty Robbie-do. Good evening, Robbie. How are you doing? Hey. Oh no microphone. Oh, no sound. Oh, we go through that again. Okay. Oh, own voice. Robbie, are you back? No.
Hi, there we go.
Fred, turn your microphone off. Robbie, are you back? Is it Robbie coming through, or is it? I can hear you too now. Awesome. Or Bleach now. So,
can you see me?
Good evening. Yes, I can see you.
My apologies.
Good evening, Robbie. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How are you?
Oh, all is well. I saw your interview earlier.
Yeah. It was good fun. Yeah.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
We must actually have her on our show. Maybe
I said that at the end of the interview. That'd
be.
Yeah. Really cool. Yeah, I was really chuffed.
Yeah. It was a really good interview, and it actually gave me a few ideas. Like she was talking about that, off topic here, but she was saying about how she main focus, that she does all her teaching, and I think actually Marilyn is very similar. A lot of the stuff that she does and channels is through Facebook. So. Yeah. It's a good channeling or good media service. But anyway, we digress. So, I hope you're well. So, tonight is the show with Fred Bleach. Now, Fred has been on the show before. And we have done back correction before. There are already, as I said, he's actually teaching, I'm teaching him, and he's teaching me back corrective therapy. We will talk about that, but we'll also talk about what Qigong has done for Fred, and also he has recently gone from a die-hard meat eater to a vegetarian, and that will be a thing that we'll talk about as well. So right now he can turn on his mic. Good evening, Fred. Nice to meet you yet again.
Good evening there, Boggy, and very pleased to be
I
here.
meet you all the time.
It's nice.
Good.
And it's nice to meet these other two people. Greetings.
Yes, so Merlin and Robbie.
Fred. Nice to meet you.
Right. So I'll ask the question. What is the answer? So the question is, Fred. This is the way of Fred Bleach. So Fred, let's start off with the old stuff first. What is your Tao? What is your way? What is Fred Bleach all about?
Right. Thank you. Well, I'm a spinal consultant. I've been practicing for over 40 years. Started when I was very, very young. And what I'm trying to do is teach people how to be able to look after themselves. We're designed to be self-regenerative, self-repairing. So you bang your arm, it gets better. Bang your leg, it gets better. You hurt your back, don't get better. Now, there's a reason why these things happen, and there are a number of ways that one can avoid problems and help themselves and enhance their own ability to recover from damage and also avoid damage. The best way to get problems don't get in the first place. That's what I've tried to do. That's why I try to spread that knowledge with all my patients, with all my teaching. Any questions that anybody has on this area, I'd be more than willing to explain in terms that are understandable, how and why things happen, because unfortunately medicine tends to look at things from the what has happened, as opposed to the why something has happened. If you can correct the why, then you don't get the what, and that tends to be the most effective way to do it.
Indeed. I mean, you're one of the only, how do I put this? You're one of the only Western practitioners I've ever met that has an Eastern viewpoint. And I know that's obviously to do with your father. So let's ask the question for those who've never seen your show before. How did you get into this? How did it start for you?
Well, this started for me when I was about 9 years old. I grew up in Highgate, and we was a three-story Victorian house, and my father was an osteopath, founder member of the Guild of Osteopaths, a fellow member of a number of other osteopathic institutions. And he'd been in practice for about 40 years himself. And what happened was one evening, as I said, I was about 9 years old. I was bored looking over the banisters upstairs, and there was a knock on the door. And this little old lady came in, classic British little old lady, tea cozy hat, grey fleck jacket, and her neck was started. She was nearly in tears. Anyway, my father said, no, right, took her into the front room, shut the door. Anyway, about 3/4 of an hour later, the door opened, she came out, and she was smiling, and she was holding his hands with both her hands and saying, thank you so much, Mr. Bleach. This is the first time I've been out of pain in 5 years. You've no idea how much you've helped me. And I thought, exactly that moment, I thought, that's what I want to do. So later that evening, I went and saw my dad, and I said to him, this is what I want to do. Will you teach me? So I then trained with him for 2 years. Then I joined the Northern Counties School of Osteopathy, and I studied with them, and I qualified with my first 2 diplomas in osteopathy and anatomy and physiology when I was 13, one of the youngest ever. wasn't very helpful at the time because you can't do very much when you're that age, because you can't go to the do's because of alcohol, and you can't go to the meetings because of alcohol, and you can't get insurance till you're 21. And even if you got a diploma, you're still just a kid because everybody was 25, 30 years older than me at the time. Now, of course, at this end of the line, I'm now 54 and everybody else has died and retired. I'm the last person in practice with my qualification. The major differences being between me and the average practitioner is that I was taught to actually heal the patient. This was the object of the exercise 30, 40 years ago. However, this object changed when we joined Europe. And nowadays, the object of the exercise is quote, to alleviate the symptomology, which means get rid of the pain. So nowadays, rather than fixing the problem, what they'll do is give you painkillers, which obviously doesn't fix the problem. I'm maintaining, and I still maintain, and this is why I teach all of my patients. I don't just treat as a practitioner, I teach. And I teach patients how to look after themselves, how to look after their environment, and how basically how the system operates, how it functions, and how to use it to one's own advantage.
Yeah, very much. I mean, guys, you've got any questions kicking? Because I mean, I can down. I've worked with him for 3 years now. Like I said,
a bit there.
Oh, go for it.
Seriously,
Go for it.
the reason I have to go, oh my God, you can't see it from here, but right in front of me is a whiteboard. Item number 9 on that board for today says do some back stretching exercises. The reason being, I took up ballet for the first time ever last year at age 47. So some people would say 40 years too late. But I have a legacy, but I was in a car accident when I was in my early 20s, which never healed properly. And I didn't know anything about osteopathy back then. So it healed sideways. And I don't get the neck lock anymore, having seen a cranial osteopath. But one of the things I've noticed with ballet is that my lower back, if you wear a corset, it does sometimes tend to go into spasm and lock up. And so I was on YouTube last night, just looking at a few videos and saying, I really need to do something with my back to stretch out after ballet and to maintain that sense of flexibility. So what you're saying is just beyond perfect. I just had to say that. It's just, for me, it was one of those synchronicity moments.
Manny, we're on the show of the Dow. We're on the show of the Dow. What do you blooming expect? Anything Dow? The Dow always provides. You ask, the Dow provides. So, but sorry, Fred or Robbie.
How perfect. That was really perfect. The way that the synchronicities work, I love the way that you approach that, though, Fred. I think everything's really just about money. It's about money. It's about big pharma. It's about selling drugs. It's got nothing to do with the patients. It's got nothing to do with health or well-being. It's just to do with give them a prescription and send them on their way. And if you can take some painkillers are good. I think it's good to have painkillers because I don't believe in people being in pain. But I think it's important to get to the root of the problem. More importantly than just giving painkillers. So I'm with you all the way. I think that's brilliant, fantastic. Yeah.
That's very, very much so. Unfortunately, it is big money. Who wants cures? I mean, if people came up with cures, you wouldn't keep buying the painkillers. And yes, you're correct. The usage of painkillers, I don't object to painkillers. I object to the reason for the usage of painkillers. Hiding a problem won't make it go away. What you've got to deal with is why the problem occurs in the first place. And as I say, it's looking at medicine from the opposite end. Medicine tends to look at the what has happened. You've got a disc damage, you've got a spinal lesion, you've got compression. They're not looking at why, and this tends to be very much throughout modern medicine, unfortunately.
And if you don't look at why, it'll just come back even if it manages to get cured. If you're not looking at the root problems of anything, it's going to just come back. It just kind of common sense, really. Yeah.
But this is why I say he's got that Eastern, you know, he's a Westerner with that Eastern, you know. For I was brought up in Taoism, and well, in medical, in Chinese medicine, which, you know, is pretty much like the Taoist viewpoint in Chinese medicine. It's always the why. What's, you know, why has that happened? You know, is that if you know, like someone gets a headache, they take an aspirin. But all you've done is you've deactivated the alarm bell that's ringing in your head saying there's a fire. The aspirin's like an axe chopping the connection to the fire bell. The fire bell's no longer ringing, but the house is still burning down.
Definitely,
you know,
definitely, yeah.
And that's the issue with is like as Fred say, that, you know, with your nerve centers, there's only certain nerve centers in your body that actually central nervous systems, or your nervous systems, there's only certain ones that actually feel pain. So a lot of the things that happen in your back, you don't actually, in your body, you don't necessarily feel, unless, especially the back, there's only 3 main nodes, points on the back that actually feel pain. So if you get the right one, you'll feel pain, but if you don't feel, you may feel a bit uncomfortable, but you won't actually feel pain. So when a doctor says, where does it hurt, all pain technically is referred pain. This is why when an amputee has their hand removed or their foot removed, they can still technically get a phantom pain or itchiness, because that nerve ending still exists. The nerve ending still exists, and it's still transmitting pain. I can do this tricks, is I can push on the point up here, and you'll get tingling in your feet. Medically, Western medically, that because this point up here can't relate to a point in your foot. Just like they say that your spine can't relate to your legs or can't relate to your head or neck, but there are certain things in your spine, which Fred will say, there are certain things in your certain points in your spine you can knock out that will give you headaches, one-sided headaches, or will affect your eyesight, or will affect your legs, or will, you know, and nervous system, the main communications for the body runs through the entire spine. That is the core of the body. When you look at yoga, when you look at Pilates, when you look at Tai Chi and Qigong, they talk about the spine being the fundamental core, because it doesn't just hold you upright, in theory, it also right, guys, you've got any other? I've got questions for. Got 10 billion questions for Fred. But if you guys got any questions, is there anything in ask?
On you go, Boggy. I'm still thinking. Sorry, I'm still recovering from this afternoon's.
Yeah, I fully understand, brother. Marilyn?
Yeah, one of the things I would ask, so I know, Fred, we haven't met, but are there, you know, like often there's a good exercise for, I don't know, stretching your neck or something. Are there a couple of really good basic exercises that are great for lower back flexibility? Is there anything sort of, even without having seen someone and doing a diagnostic, you might suggest as a good starting point?
Yes. But as a practitioner, I only really advise 2 forms of exercise, one being swimming, the other being cycling. The reason for that is that both these exercises do not put compression, do not put pressure on your spine. Secondly, you're using the whole body. And this is important. The muscle systems on the body work as teams. You can't just turn a single little bit of a muscle on. This is part of the way that I use diagnosis with treatment of the patients. You've got all back problems are basically the same thing. The problem is it's not getting better, and there's a couple of major problems with that and why this occurs. And one of them is, unfortunately, the basis of all modern medicine. 300-400 years ago, all medicine was based on the Eastern concepts of medicine. This is whereby you treat the patient. The patient starts at the top, the patient ends at the end. You treat the whole patient as a unit. Unfortunately, what then happened in the 1700s was this person came along and said, oh no, no man could be clever enough to understand everything about the human body. We're so great. Now, of course, in the 1700s, this went down extremely well. So what happened was the concept of what's known as the biomechanical model of the body. This is where we break the body down into a series of individual little components, and you have a specialist for each little component. Now, whilst this system works very well with things like limbs, organs, etc., recently there's been a gentleman who actually had a successful head transplant, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. But the basic problem was that at the time they didn't know about the one thing that makes us unique among primates, why we can stand up and no other primate does. This is because we developed, over a series of eons, we developed a system known as the ligamentous muscle system. This is an interconnected system that runs right from the top of your neck, right to the bottom of your spine, like two pieces of string. So you've got the floppy dummy, you pull the string straight, the dummy stands up. Now, unfortunately, they did not know of the existence of this system when they came up with the biomechanical model. So medically, they consider that your neck is separate to the middle of your back, is separate to your lower back. And this is where the basic problems occur. Because they're not looking at the structure correctly, it's very difficult to actually correct it. So, for instance, if you take a piece of string, tie it between 2 points, if you pull the string, say, a third of the way down, where's the tension? Most people say maybe in the middle, maybe at the top, maybe where you're pulling. No, the answer is throughout the entire string. So it doesn't matter where I pull the string, it's still going to affect the whole string. And this applies with the spine also. It doesn't matter whether you put a bone out in your lower back or in your upper neck, it is still going to affect the entire structure. And this has to be taken into account. The second basic problem is that, again, the basis of medicine is to look for pain. And where's your pain? How can we remove your pain? Now, the problem is that all the basis for all back problems, I said, is a lack of recovery. You're self-regenerative. You're designed to regenerate your own structure, rebuild, heal. So why isn't it happening in certain places? Because the system works globally. Now, that's because the entrapment, you've got nerve entrapment. Any spinal malalignment creates nerve entrapment. Now, if the nerve entrapment is on the central nervous system nerve, yes, you will get pain. You will receive pain. However, the majority of the entrapment is actually on the autonomic or the automatic systems that regulate how your body functions. Now, although these areas, because these areas don't have any pain receptors, medically, we don't look for them. We're only looking for the nerve entrapment that hurts. And consequently, nobody's looking for why you're not getting better.
Right. Okay, cool. I've got another question because this is a question that will lead on to one of your classic answers. So, wake up in the mornings, and I'm aching. I've slept in bed and I'm aching. Why? What's going on? Is that supposed to be normal, or is there something going on? And is there anything I can do about it?
Well, yes, this is actually one of the major concerns. When I was at Oxford University 35, 40 years ago now, maybe 1 or 2 people out of 10 had trouble with their beds. Now, unfortunately, nowadays, that is nearly 9 out of 10, or at least 9 out of 10 patients. The reason being is that beds have become far more specialist. And the problem with that is the more specialist you make anything, the fewer people it works for. So what happens is you wake up in the morning, you're stiff and achy, you get up, you move around, you brush your teeth, get a cup of tea, you feel okay again. So you think you're okay. However, you're not. If you're waking up with stiffness or pain in the morning, this means, by definition, the muscles are in spasm. If the muscles are in spasm, logically, this restricts blood supply. If you restrict blood supply to the area, the result is a degeneration or a lack of regeneration of tissue in the area. Similar to, say, put an elastic band around your wrist every night before you go to bed. All right, take it off every morning when you get up. How long before your hand suffers? It's not an if, it's a when. And this tends to be the major problem that I see every day, is people that are getting out of bed saying, okay, we're stiff rated, but I get up, I do my exercise, I do my stretches, then I feel fine. Well, no, the problem is, if you're doing the stretches, it means that you've got spasm. If you've got spasm, you're restricting blood supply. And what's necessary is actually to deal with the reason why you've got the spasm, the reason why you have that tension, not merely remove the tension by an exercise or series of exercises or stretching.
How can we solve that in any way, if that's part of the way that we buy beds and our beds are all wrong? How can we solve that? What can be the problem? What can be the solution to that?
Well, that's actually, believe it or not, that's actually relatively easy. Now, the problem is there is no such thing as a bed that's good for your back. Who's back? Your back, Marilyn's back, Paul's back, a seafood boogie by, a great Uncle Bulgaria. It doesn't matter. We're all different, okay? Everybody's unique. So the mechanics of the structure are unique. So there is no such thing as a bed that's good for back. There is no such thing as a pillow that's good for your neck. What you have to do is you have to make your environment suit you. Now, it's quite easy with beds actually to achieve this result. All you require is some duvets. Simple as that. And what you do is you take the sheet off the mattress, you put the duvet on top of the mattress, making sure it's up the headboard end, because usually the duvet's not as long as a bed, right? Doesn't matter if your feet are off, will matter if you change the height of your pillow. You put the duvet on top of the mattress, you put the sheet back, you sleep on it. You see how you wake up next morning. If it's always a bit better, but yeah, still not right, give it a couple of mornings, right? Still not right. So you take the sheet off, you put 2 layers of duvet on, you put the sheet back on, you try that. You carry on with this adjustment until you get it right. When you get it right, you'll know you got it right because you wake up in the morning, no pain, no tension. Simple as that. Now, this means that your body is actually able to do repairs. Your body can't repair damaged tissue while you're standing up and walking on it. You're under gravitational load. There's constant movement. It's like having a cut and just keep rubbing the cut. All that's going to happen is the cut keeps bleeding. So you can only do this while you're laying down. So the bed is extremely important for correct function of your spine and therefore correct function of the body. As Boggy pointed out, yes, there are only 4 main nerves that do not travel through the spine. Every other nerve controlling every other aspect of your body travels through your spine. Therefore, you can affect every aspect of your body by spinal entrapment, but not the spinal entrapment that hurts, the spinal entrapment on the repair system, on your automatic systems. No pain, but these are the functions that are actually going to lead to you being able to recover or even prevent a condition. By getting your bed right, you're self-corrective. During the day, gravitational load pulls you down, slightly out of alignment all the way down through your spine, right? So it's shorter at the end of the day than when you got up in the morning. So what happens is you lay down at night, muscle tension evens off left and right, everything realigns, you get up in the morning, you're an inch taller, inch and a half taller than you were when you went to bed. That's why classically people used to go for things like passport photographs first thing in the morning. Now, this works unless the bed is wrong. And that's where the major problem occurs, particularly with things like memory foams, which literally, by definition, stop your body being able to realign and correct itself.
But more comfortable. It sounds like there's a gap in the market waiting for a bed system that you're just getting ready to put in the market here that you're tailor-made for. It's kind of quite a widespread problem though, Fred. That's quite a hard thing to, So before, like 30, 40 years ago, I think beds were harder, yeah? So I knew somebody that used to sleep on tatami mats, and I couldn't be bothered with it, to be honest. It's far too hard for me. I like a bit of a softer bed. But what do you think about that idea?
Well, again, the problem is generalization. It's like lots of people say, oh, lay on a hard bed. Yeah, who says and for whom? The problem is that what will work for me may not work for you, may not work for Marilyn. There is no pat answer to the question. So there is no pat good bed as such. The idea of a hard bed, very old fashioned. Yes, it can work for people, and I have had patients who can sleep on a futon, for instance, Japanese futon on the floor, and I have a few patients, but in the majority that is not the case. The majority of people require a system that actually provides support at multiple levels. Now that's what they try to achieve with modern beds, 10,000 pocketed springs. The idea is to try, and you're not flat when you lay on a bed. We're not flat, right? So a flat surface isn't going to work. What you require is a surface that actually molds to the system and provides the same support all the way around, and that's where the difficulty occurs. It's very difficult to achieve this mechanically with a bed. The best form and systems of doing this are actually things like air beds and water beds. Water beds particularly. The reason being is the physics involved. Because of the physics involved, you can't compress water. So when you lay on a water bed, the pressure at any one point can only be exactly the same as it is at any other point. It's impossible for it not to be. And that's actually one of the most important things. Secondly, water beds tend to be heated. Now, the way your body works, when you get hot, your message comes from your brain via your autonomic nervous system, which you can't feel, to what's called white muscle. You have three types of muscle in the body. Your grey striated muscle, which is the functional muscle. You have heart muscle, myocardia, and you have what's called white muscle. Now, every vein and artery, every capillary, all the blood vessels of the system are covered with this white muscle, and your body uses it amongst other things to regulate your body temperature. So when you get cold, a message goes via your autonomic system, which you can't feel, to the white muscle around the blood supply, shuts down the white muscle, restricts blood supply to the area. You go white, you preserve body heat. Same process in reverse when you get hot. Bed message sends message to the autonomic nervous system, expands the white muscle around the blood supply, more blood supply to the surface, you radiate body heat. Now, when you trap a nerve, the muscle associated with that nerve will go into spasm. And you can feel that. You felt this in your backs yourselves over the years. However, what you're not feeling is that it also sends the white muscles into spasm around the area, effectively cutting off the blood supply to the tissue. And that's where the problem originates. And by, as I say, adjusting your bed to suit you, you can basically, in most circumstances, correct the situation. Same thing applies with heads, with pillows. Again, there's no such thing as a pillow good for your back. You've got to try, you've got to adjust. Again, one way of doing this is you can get things like water pillows, where you can actually put more or less water in and adjust the tension to suit you. But there is no pat answer. I've had patients I've had a guy take the seats off his couch, put them on his bed. Perfect. When I saw his wife, actually about a year later, he'd still got no cushions on his couch. So I said to him, how come? I thought you were going to get him another bashes. He said, well, no. He said, look, I've had 10 years of getting out of bed in pain. He said, this works. I'm just going to leave it like it is and buy another couch.
So also, does this same thing work with if you're driving in your car and you drive for 15 minutes or half an hour, even a couple of hours, and you're getting backache? Is that there is something you can do about that as well? Again,
same sort of problem applies. There's no such thing as a car seat that's good for your back. Now, one of the main problems is that your natural driving position is, again, automatic. It's an automatic function. When you're driving, you're not thinking about where you're putting your hands, where you're putting your feet, how you change your gear, how you steer. You're thinking about what's on the road and what's going on and where you're going and what the missus was doing and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can't get into a car and adjust the car seat to your natural driving position. Problem is, people get into a car, sit back, oh, lovely and comfortable, just, oh, that's great, fantastic. Put the seatbelt on, now sit up and drive. Well, now you might as well be sitting on a box, right? What you got to do is again, very simple to do. What you got to do is get in your car, wait till you've been driving 10, 15 minutes, yep, and you're in a natural driving position, and wait till you have to stop for lights or a corner or a car, or just because it's convenient. Right, stop, stay dead still, take one hand only off of the steering wheel and adjust the seat up so the seat comes up and just touches your back and your head. Now that seat is adjusted for your natural driving position. Now you can drive all day and all night. You're not using any muscle power, so you don't get the ache, you don't get the tension. And that's again very simple to do. Nobody tells you, because under new medical rules, basically not supposed to say anything, not supposed to make any firm diagnosis. Everything's got to be probably, possibly, maybe. Not supposed to give any advice. Not supposed to do anything whereby the patient can come back and say you're wrong. So that's fine. You go off and carry on and hurt yourself because it's not my fault. That's okay, isn't it? And I don't agree with that philosophy.
That's a shocking philosophy, isn't it? Really, it's worry about insurance, to be honest, more than anything else. What do you think about these beads in the driving cars? You know, you get the beads in the back of the cars that massage you as you're driving. What do you think about them?
Right, again, same thing. It's not a one question answer. It may suit you, it may not suit you. But this is the problem. There is no pat answer. I mean, I've had patients come with brand new BMWs, 18 electronic programmable settings. You can even program a name in and press the button. The seat all moves to itself. Still no good if you haven't got the seat adjusted correctly.
Have you? Sorry, have you?
No,
since? Sorry, have you noticed the difference in your back energy, or how you look at the way that you do things since you've taken on Qigong?
Yes, very, very definitely.
Stop! Save that for part two. Save that for part two.
Sorry.
We'll do that in vegetarianism for part two.
I must apologise. I didn't have any time this week to do research, so I'm just thinking about questions. My apologies.
No, it's perfectly fine. It's just that I thought we'd explore that, because we've done a whole 2 hours in the past with Fred on this, and I thought, you know, like, I know you guys may have some alternative questions, and I thought I'd throw them and also get out the you know, the important stuff is seafood. You should be able to fix your own back. If you've got pain, figure out what's causing you the pain and do something about it. Einstein once said, you know, what was it? Stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different result. You know, you can wait, oh, my back hurts. Oh, my back hurts. Oh, my back hurts. Day 336 in the boggy house. Oh, my back hurts. You know, if something different, change it. But we're not taught to, you know, you go to a doctor's and say, oh, my knee hurts, oh, my back hurts. Oh, well, I've heard this being said. I've heard people come and say, my doctor said it's old age.
My apologies. God bless you.
So this is, you know, this is the thing you got to be aware of is that the medical profession we've been fed that will say, oh, you know, oh, that's just old age. You just got to get you know, Marilyn, you know, how silly are you doing ballet at your age? You know, it's like, rubbish. You know, you can do. I've had, and again, this is in part two. I've had people in Qigong 96. You know, there's never. Fred, what's your oldest patient? I know what you're. But
my oldest ever patient treated was 94. My youngest ever patient was 22 months old and flown over to see me from Holland after Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital and said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. That's just the way your daughter walks," despite the fact that this toddler was wandering around with one shoulder up by her ear. But we didn't want to admit that the possibility of a midwife delivering a baby with a pair of forceps might be able to actually twist the baby's neck as they're pulling it up. Well, we couldn't admit that because that could lead to being sued. So everything nowadays, as you say, money, and that's the main thing. Unfortunately, that's what you're looking against. But as I say, by adjusting your bed, by adjusting your environment, your seat, same with the chair. You sit in a chair for a couple of hours. Oh, I have terrible trouble standing up. That's not because of you. That's because of the chair. What the chair's supposed to be doing is supporting you, not the other way around. And that's where the problems come in, because people just the basic knowledge, the basic understanding isn't out there, despite the fact, I mean, you don't need a medical diploma to understand. If you hold your hand tight like that, your hand goes white. Why does your hand go white? Runs out of blood supply. What's going to happen if you keep it like that for the next 6 months? Oh, your hand's going to get bad. Simples. Hot water, hot baths, keeping the area warm. In the case of Marilyn, I would suggest that yeah, you want to adjust your bed, and particularly your pillars, because yeah, I can see just by looking at you that you're waking up with stiffness in the morning. Am I wrong?
Are you?
Not anymore, because I started doing something a couple of months ago which has made a massive difference to the point where I'm just like, so that was going to be my next question actually, in terms of have you done any research about and stimulating the vagus nerve, and if so, what is the, you know, can you say a little bit more about that kind of body and field of work?
Yes, I have done research on that. There's quite a lot of information on that. I'm a member of the Royal Society of Medicine, which gives me access to their records and their full library. And yes, there is indication. Yes, working particularly with the vagus nerve specifically works because that is one of the only 4 nerves that do not travel through your spine. So regardless of your spinal condition, function of the vagus nerve can be affected without needing to deal with a spinal corrective problem. Does that answer your question?
Yes, because, you know, I've been intrigued, and it you know, in terms of just looking at what I think the mechanics of it are in terms of, you know, oxygenation, better blood flow, I'm thinking that must have a difference in terms of maybe moving. But I just like, I'm kind of just starting to look into it, and I'm just very intrigued about, you know, how it works, the impact that it has on the body, and what is actually going on there, because it's made such a massive difference to me, my posture, my flexibility, what I'm able to do. So, you know, it's kind of a new area that I'm just looking at, but you know, in the last 3 or 4 months, it has been quite incredible in terms of how I feel and the way I move and that sort of thing.
Yep. As we're going to talk later with Bobby, yeah, the Qigong is the same sort of thing. But as I look at you, as you're sitting there, I can see that your right shoulder is down in relation to your left shoulder, which would indicate to me you have more difficulty turning your head towards your left than you do towards your right. You would also indicate that you've got restriction in the middle, which restricts, apart from anything else, restricts your ability to breathe in. So if you if you press in your rib cage, what's called intercostal muscle, you'll probably find they can be quite tender or ticklish, as a similar sort of result. These, you can compensate for them, but in basis, unfortunately, in your case, I would suggest that actually needs a manipulative correction. You got an old whiplash injury and it's never been treated.
it wasn't treated for the first, oh gosh, probably wasn't treated for the first 15 years, let's say. When I was 32, I did find an osteopath who kind of, I was no longer in pain and walking about with a bit like the girl you described, with her neck sort of up. So it had about 15 years of no correction, and then kind of saw an osteopath so that I'm no longer walking around doubled up or hunched over. But I have one bag carrying side, which probably also accounts for a bit of being out of alignment a bit. But yes, I have treated it now. I didn't just leave it. But I did have, the first 15 or so years, I didn't know anything about, the body and functionality and that sort of thing.
This is one of the problems we see a lot, as I say. The problem is finding practitioners who actually work on a basis of correcting the cause rather than removing the symptomology.
That's something I've noticeable with the stuff I do, obviously with the massage, reflexology, shiatsu, traditional Chinese massage, tuina. It's a lot of people will relieve the pain, but they don't actually, what caused it to begin with. So you get people, hear a lot, and I've in the past the people who've seen osteopaths or chiropractors, they say, oh yeah, I see my chiropractor, I see my osteopath once a week. Some we've had recently, me and Fred obviously work together, we do 2-person healing. I've heard somebody say they go twice a week, and then they're okay. But it's be like that. It's like if you had to go once a week or twice a week to get your car fixed, the mechanic, and there's definitely something wrong with your car. But when it comes to bodies, we suddenly see everything in a totally different way. I've always found it quite interesting. It's some things we expect things in a certain way, but then it's like, if something had a problem, if you had something that kept breaking down, you'd fix it, or had little niggles. But when people have niggles, we say, oh, that's just old age. Oh, that's just this. Oh, that's just that. And we ignore them. This thing, this understanding, this, like with Fred, what I love about Fred is that the barefoot doctor, the main aim of a barefoot doctor is to help others help themselves. So it's not actually, the barefoot doctor's main aim is not to heal people, is actually to teach people to heal themselves. That's the point. And that's when it comes to back manipulation, or in Chinese it's called bone setting. They know it's bone setting, but when back manipulation, Fred's one of the few people I know that will actually give you information, and you can call him up pretty much 24/7, and you can simply ask advice, and he will give you advice. And that's the point. Is that we've done the way of before, or I think it was actually last year, about what, if you could add things in school, what would it be? And it'd be healthcare. It'll be, but proper, like decent, actually knowing how your body actually works. It's like, actually, I'll ask, I don't think we've had the question. So, Fred, what is, when you manipulate somebody, what is the click? What is that clicking? Have we spoke about that?
No, but I could say that, right? What that clicking is it's actually a vacuum breaking. How it works is, how the structure works is that there are bones on your spine. Your spine has bones that interconnect each other so that they can't shear across the column. And there's 2 little joints in there that are known as facet joints. Doctors call facet joints. Facet, intervertebral facet. Now, that's just cartilage, bag jelly, same as the cartilage anywhere else in your body, right? And the 2 smooth surfaces sit on that cartilage. Now, when the bone goes out, the local muscle that you trap nerves, the local nerves go into send the muscles into spasm. The spasm pulls the two smooth surfaces into that bag of jelly, creating a vacuum. Now, the click cue here is called, medically, it's called the turning moment. And this is the point whereby the vacuum breaks as the vertebra goes back into alignment. Very similar to a musician clicking his fingers. By gapping the area, you increase blood supply, you reduce muscle tension, and the better the blood supply, the better the system works. We run on blood supply, and if you can improve the blood supply to an area, you will recover. I've got, and I boast, a better than 99% success rate. Now, Paul Boggy's been working with me for, well, I know, 3 years, maybe a bit more, and he's seen maybe a third of my patient clientele, mainly because I teach all my patients. They know what to do. They know how to look after themselves. Every now, he still gets patients to turn up that he's never seen before. This is because you can actually deal with a lot of the problems yourself. You got to just look at the structure correctly, and as I say, the basic concept. If you've got spasm, muscular spasm, it stops blood supply. If you're cutting off blood supply to an area, it's going to cause a problem. Simple as that.
Indeed, indeed. And I think I'll see if Aman's got any more questions in a minute. But the one other thing that I wanted to mention, because I think it's sort of important as well. So, you know, I've got a memory. I've spent £1,500 on a memory foam bed, you know, but I'm still getting backache. What's, you know, I thought that was good for your back. Why is the memory foam bed? Why am I still getting problems?
Right, they're basically, with memory foam beds, are actually quite problematic. As it says, memory foam is designed to actually keep you in your perfect laying position all through the night, which, as long as your back's okay, and as long as everything is straight, yes, it will hold you straight. However, the problem occurs when something goes wrong. When something goes wrong, it's visible. You can see the physical effects of it. There's dropping your shoulders, restriction of movement, physical pain, etc. The problem with the memory foam is that it stops your own natural corrective process from going on. As I explained earlier, right at the beginning, the body muscle tension evens off left and right, tension evens off, everything straightens out, voila, you wake up till the morning. Unless, of course, you're being held in the wrong place just as effectively as you're being held in the right place. And that's the big problem with memory foams. Again, very easily correctable. One layer of duvet will stop the memory effect, but you'll still have the support of the foam.
Thank you very much, Fred. So, more questions before we wrap up part one. And yeah, have you got any more questions?
Yeah, and I recognise you'd have to be very careful in terms of the healing side of things, but in your experience from what you've seen, would you say as long as people have the right treatment, they look at the underlying issue, it sounds as though it's a very hopeful that you can actually regenerate these things even if you've had a problem for a long period of time? Would you say, generally speaking, that is correct? I'm sure there'll be cases where you've gone beyond the point of no return, but it sounds pretty hopeful that, you know, once you get to the underlying cause and you make these corrections, that you can actually, you know, regenerate and heal what have been for people maybe lifelong problems.
Yes, you're very correct on that point. Doesn't matter how long you've had a condition. What matters is how well you regenerate tissue. Now, I've been flown to Florida, California, Boston, Long Island, Germany, Bremen, been all over the world treating patients, right? And there's only one thing that's average among people, and that is we all take around about the same sort of time to heal. So if all three of us made a little cut just in the top of our hand, just there, right, little cut right now, that'd stop bleeding in, I don't know, a minute or two for all of us, regardless of race, regardless of age, regardless of sex. That would be about the case, right? However, it's going to be at least a week or so before you can rub it without it tearing again. And it's going to be at least 2 to 3 weeks before you can rub it hard. And strangely enough, your back's made from the same stuff as your hand. My average course of treatments is 3 to 4 treatments over a period of 2 to 3 weeks. The reason for that is it takes that time to regenerate the tissue. But yeah, it doesn't matter how long you've had it. As I say, I treated my 94-year-old, the oldest patient I treated. He took 9 treatments, right, over a period of 7, 8 weeks. But he still recovered. Age just means you regenerate slower. Your body's regenerative system doesn't stop until the day you die. So it just slows down. Below the age of 18, it's faster. When pregnant, it's faster. As you get older, it slows down. But it doesn't stop. And very commonly, I get patients say, oh, look, I've got to have a hip replacement. I'm 70 years old, yeah. Well, how come the other hip's all right? Because it's the same age. Oh no, it's wear and tear, you know, yeah. Oh, what? So you hop a lot, do you? Because otherwise you're using both hips the same. The logic doesn't work if you think about the logic. And this is one of the things I stress with all my patients. Think about it. Don't just accept that, oh, duh, that's the way it be. If you think about things, invariably there is something you can do to help yourself. Just with the basic understanding, not a great medical knowledge, not a medical diploma in anatomy and physiology, just a basic understanding that how the body regulates its blood supply, how nerve entrapment is going to alter that regulation of the blood supply, and what to do to be able to compensate and improve that so that the body system reply. My limitations are my patient's body's limitations. So I've got patients with multiple sclerosis. I can't do anything about that. Their body can't. I've got a patient, one of my trainees, in fact, the only trainee of mine who's actually fully qualified now. They're practicing, same as I am, doing the exact same thing, right? Well, I taught him. In fact, we treated him today. He came today for treatment. He suffers from a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is not common. There's only about 100, 120 people in the UK with it. I don't know about worldwide. USA wide particularly, I don't know. However, that leads to an instability and a soft tissue regenerative problem. However, even with him, even with his condition, by maintaining the environment, by maintaining the system, he still can carry on absolutely as normal.
Indeed, and the important thing, for me to sort of emphasise, because I'm going from pretending not to know anything that Fred's talking about to being his right hand man in ClickG anyway, which we could talk about in part 2 if you're interested. But the actual knowledge is that yes, you know, like 3 to 4, you know, treatments depending on the person, but we both know if we both know by the second treatment if somebody has if they're having regular hot baths, because that's part of the treatment as well. Having the hot bath increases blood supply. If they're doing that, you will know by the next treatment whether they're doing it or the treatment after. And this is the thing, is it's not just about us. You know, is one thing I grew up like before. I grew up in the barefoot doctor world, which is, it's not, you know, it's a lot of people body to fix them. And the Taoist concept is yes, you can do that, but it's far, far, far better. Knowledge is power. It's far better to actually know how to help yourself, and then when you're in dire, or you know, you've tried everything in your nothing works, then you go and see the barefoot doctor, then you go and see Fred, you know. And that's why, like I said, I've known Fred 3.5 years, and I've only still seen a third of his clients, because a lot of them only come when absolutely necessary. And I've heard it time and time again. They say, oh, you know what, I've been doing what you taught me, Fred, but I just can't do it this time. And he'll say is that there's always, you know, that you can solve like 80% of the problems that go wrong yourself. You can, if you have the knowledge, you can solve 80%, but there's always going to be that 20%, 10 to 20% that you're going to need somebody else. And that's what for us is, we're here to teach people, to help people figure it out 80% of the time. And then when they need us, we're here for that 20% or that 10%. And that's, for me, that's the real key is I love doing this show, sending knowledge out, helping people find knowledge. This is the point of, you know, gathering that knowledge, gathering information, helping yourself. And then, but also, you know, you help yourself, but also ask others to help as well. But this key of, if you can figure out, if you know the basis, so just from tonight, just from knowing that, you know, if you're aching when you're driving, sort your chair out. If you wake up stiff and achy, your bed's not right, sort your bed out. £1 bed. It doesn't take a NASA scientist, but if you know one, if you need a rocket. But you know what it does take is just a little bit of common sense. What we would think is common sense is, you know, just a duvet. Try a duvet. I mean, me duvets, but half the time I go through a few, but I actually have air beds. I actually have an air bed. The only problem being boggy, an air bed lasts about a month for me, and then I have to get a new one. I haven't got the cash at the moment to get a water bed, and I don't intend to stay where I am. So that's probably water beds. They are pretty stationary. But air beds have always worked for me. I always get the best night's sleep if I have an air bed. But I have a good couple of duvets, and that keeps me going for a while, and then I'll get another air bed, and I'm back to normal again. But also having him on my shoulder, the older Mr. Bleach, the bad guy. So, any more questions before we wrap up part one? As you're the only one here.
No, not questions per se. It's just really heartening to know about, you know, the reaffirmation of the regenerative quality of the body. I think for me that's great news, and I'm sure it will be for a lot of people kind of watching this and listening to this as well. So it's been absolutely fascinating. So I look forward to hearing what you've got to share in part two.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. You don't have to be in pain. You don't have to feel like your life is over. You don't have to be told that, oh, it's old age. You'll always be in pain. You're always going to have backache. That's total rubbish. But we live in a society, you know, that a lot of things are with medicine. It's not about, it's maintaining an illness. Pharmaceutical companies actually honestly say that. Their aim, their goal is to maintain, listen to the words, it's the small print. That's what they're talking about. And you know, it is what it is. They're a business, they're a company, and that's what they do. But it doesn't your money with them. You don't have to do it. Figure out ways of doing it. Don't leave yourself suffering. Figure out that information, find that knowledge, figure out ways to do it. But you know, you don't have to be in pain. And pain is an indication there's something wrong, but find out what's causing the wrong rather than just take away the pain. Fred, have you got anything you want to say on this subject before we close down part one?
No, I think I've pretty much covered the basis of it. Yeah, again, reason an airbed works, think of the physics involved. Again, you can't compress air. Well, under normal circumstances anyway, same as water. So the pressure at any one point is going to be exactly the same as the pressure at any other point, same as a tyre. Doesn't matter where. If you got 32 psi in the tyre, it doesn't matter where in the tyre you measure it, it's still going to have 32 psi in it. Even when it's half flat with only 15 in it, it's still got 15 all the way around. And that's one of the basic problems, is trying to create an environment that will provide stable support to all points. And that's difficult to achieve mechanically. And that's where bed manufacturers have a problem. But as I say, the other thing is specialists. the more specialized anything is, the fewer people it works. You can go to Tesco, Sainsbury's, buy a pair of glasses, fibre, pick them off the shelf, bang, 1.5, 1.25, try what, see what works for you. Works for 60, 70% of the population, which is why Tesco and Sainsbury's are selling them. However, there's 25, 30% of the population have to go to a specialist optician, receive a specialist lens. Now, that specialist lens is pretty much only any good for them. The other problem with beds, of course, is money. People go to IKEA, buy a £70 mattress, they think it's crap. People get a £5,000 mattress from Harrods, oh, it must be good. No, good for who? Again, same question applies. There's no pat answer to the question. There is what suits you, also what suits you now. 10 years ago, your physiology was different. The mechanics of your spine was different. 10 years from now, the mechanics of spine are going to be different again. So you have to adjust and adapt. And that's what they don't let people realize, is that you can actually deal with these things yourself. You just taught, oh, that's the way it is. We treat, Boggy and I treat what? Dozen different supposedly incurable conditions. And why they consider whiplash is considered medically an incurable condition. Right? Why? Because it doesn't get better. Why doesn't it get better? Well, we're not looking at why it doesn't get better. We're just saying it doesn't get better. And that's the way it works, unfortunately. And while money, at the end of the day, it's becoming more and more and more money orientated, not just in medicine, in life.
Indeed. Indeed.
To just say, thankfully I didn't hear the rhetoric about whiplash being incurable, so I'm glad that was not put into my head all those years ago, because that is just, oh my god, that's crazy. So thankfully I didn't get that memo.
Yeah, that's yeah, but yeah, it is whiplash. They say technically is incurable.
Insurance reasons. It's for insurance. A lot of conditions nowadays are more an observation than a diagnosis. So, saying RSI, rapid strain injury, that is more observation than it is a diagnosis. Saying sciatica, that's about as general as you can get. Technically, there's one main nerve runs down your leg called the sciatic nerve. By definition, therefore, any pain on down the leg is therefore technically sciatica. However, the reason could be anything from a rotational lesion to a crash disc to you happen to fall on a bit. I mean, I've got a lady patient. Boogie's met her. She came off, landed flat on her ass on concrete, smashed 4 vertebrae in her spine. Mind you, medically, actually, they made a mistake because they said there was only 3, and it wasn't until after they'd done the scan they said, oh, sorry, there was actually 4, we missed one. Still full recovery. Why? Because your body's designed to be able to do it, as long as the repair system is able to deal with the condition. And that's the limitation. And yeah, bodies are very, very resilient. 4 years ago, prior to Qigong, I was on a walking frame, waiting for an emergency knee replacement.
Part 2!
No problem. Part 2. Right, anyway, over to Boogie!
Right, okay. So, yeah, I mean, there's... I'll quickly say this, and then it's like the whole arthritis thing. If a doctor says you've got a spot of arthritis in the hand, you can't get a spot of arthritis in the hand. The actual, the illness itself, it's it's a genetic thing and it's all over the body. It can't be in one place. You can't get a spot of it. You've either got it or you haven't. But it's a diagnosis that medical professions tend to use nowadays to say, oh, well, it's this. Oh, you got a common cold. You got this. You got that. But anyway, if we're any more. If we're done, we'll close down this part 1. So I hope you guys in podcast world even enjoyed this. We will come back for part 2, or look out for part 2. So bye from the lovely man. It is Robido, who is no longer here at the moment, and it is goodbye from the mighty Fred Bleach, the bad guy. So
it's goodbye from him, and it's goodbye from me. Yeah.
What he said. So take care. Love. Qi, and Shen, Sifu Boggy, and the way of conscious mindfulness. Cool. Okay, that's all done. Does anybody need water or a loo break before we got to? I'll just write it down. Yeah, Marilyn does. Right, cool. So that's the time all there. I'm just going to get some more water. Give me a minute.
This is still showing live on here, by the way.
It will. It will.
All right. Okay.
You can't stop the show. You have to keep going. So then it just then I'd have to restart it all over again. Right. So I'm just going to get some water. 2 minutes. Spill water.
While he's away, got any other questions, Marion, I can help you with? Advice?
Well, number one, where are you guys based? Where do you practice?
I'm based in Hayes near Heathrow, but as with my dad, I do a visiting practice, so I travel to my patients.
Oh.
They come, some come to me, some I go to. It depends where they are. A couple of weeks ago, me and Boggy were over in Ilford. As I say, I'm over in Hayes. Hayes is a nice central place where I live. I'm 10 minutes from the M4. I'm 10 minutes from the M40. I'm 10 minutes from the M25. I'm 10 minutes from Heathrow Airport. Fantastic. Right in the middle of all of it. Don't do a lot of treatments in East London simply because it's restrictive cost-wise. I've got to look at time and expenses, so it's expensive. But yeah, I travel. I mean, the furthest I've travelled inland, I suppose, would be North Yorkshire. It's about 250, 300 miles. But and that was a ex-pro footballer that had gone managerial, and I mean, he drove in and he had a keep and he had stables and dogs and, you know, really rich. But yeah, the same thing applies though. If you're not getting better, one of the big problems they do nowadays is, as I say, is temporary removal of the pain. And that's the object of the exercise. Because they changed the laws to that object, that's where the problem occurs. Nowadays, as I say, we're not supposed to. They did it because when we first joined Europe, the average success rate in treatment of spinal conditions was about a 25% success rate. 50% of cases made no difference whatsoever, and in 25% of cases made the patient worse. Now, when we could join Europe and everything became trust-based, hospitals became trust-based, you've now got profit and loss sheets, balance sheets, 25% doesn't cut it, no good, right? So they couldn't just suddenly make people any better than they were. So what the government did was they changed the premise, they changed the object of the exercise. Today, as I say, the object of the exercise is, quote, to alleviate the symptomology. So you go to your doctor, he gives you a script for painkillers, you are now a tick. You see, you're not an X, you're now a tick, because we have successfully treated your pain, right? Consequently, figures look better. It's a bit like exam results. More people than ever pass through exam results. Well, yeah, you move the goalposts. I mean, when I did English lit, I got an E, which was a fail. If I did that today, an E, I'd be a pass. Well, same thing. All you're doing is changing the parameters so that the figures look better. Politicians work on this basis, and it's a shame that it works that way. But I don't see it changing. I mean, at the end of the day, big money runs things, and that's the way it works. I mean, look at Virgin. I mean, you're in the UK. You're in the UK, aren't you, Mary? Are you in the UK?
Yeah, I live in Watford in Hertfordshire, so not far from London.
Not far. Yeah, you're not far from me. Virgin are the only company that can put cable into your house. The only company licensed to do that. Do you know why? Because Sir Richard had a deal with Sir Tony Blair and got the deal. Right now, Sir Tony Blair is now a multi-millionaire, and the only company that can put cable into your house is Virgin. Money. That's what it comes down to. And it's a shame because, I mean, nowadays doctors have to have a practice manager. You're supposed to run your surgery at a profit, which means instead of giving out brand name medication, we're going to give out generic medication. Sometimes that generic medication isn't the same. But it's money again. I mean, you can't run a medical service on a basis of a profit producing system. That it doesn't work. And unfortunately, that's the way people have to do it now. Doctors are the same, chemists are the same, and unfortunately, as I say, you then look at the insurance points. Terms, medical terms have got these terms, and incurable conditions got this because you can take it to court. RSI was developed so you can take it to court. There's a couple of guys in Switzerland trying to get cyber addiction as registered as a medical condition, because then you can take it to court. You see, you need to be able to use these within, you need to be able to do these things within legal parameters. And that's where the problem happens.
And he's back.
How you doing?
Right, yeah, we're all good. We're ready for part 2. I was actually focusing. I was thinking, Robbie, bring Robbie. Robbie will appear. He will.
I could hear you. I could hear you.
Aye, laddie, you can. It's the buggy in me. So anyway, aye. Right, okay. So if we're all ready to go, we'll crack on with part 2, and all my bits together. And so we'll start in time ready. So we're starting. We'll do it as shortish. Well, we'll go up to about normal time, about 10. So it might only be about half an hour. It depends how long. Well, it depends how many questions we go with this. But so we'll still end around about the same time. You guys want to push it, so it's up to you. So we'll start in. We're all ready to go. We'll start in 5. Breathe out the char. Let it go, and you'll go far. Welcome to the Way of Conscious Mindfulness, Part 2, and this is the Way of Fred Bleach. Now, it was an awesome Part 1, and if you've missed it, what are you doing, you fool? Go and listen to Part 1 first. Come back later. We talked pretty much about back care. We have discussed this with Fred before, with the Great Questioner and the Mighty Q in last year. But we went over it again with new faces, and we rediscovered the whole the back care issue and ways to deal with your back. Now this part 2, interesting one. It's in essence is that when I first met, it's probably a little bit, in some of it is a little bit maybe of a plug for me, but more about Qigong. But when I first met Fred, and Fred will tell him to yourself, and Fred was a great practitioner, healing practitioner, but he was in dire trouble. He had a few walking problems. He did have a walking stick, and 3 years. In the last 3 years, he went from knee operation, walking. Also, I mean, can we nod? Well, I'm going to say ish, but can we mention the kidney stuff as well? Yeah, I think that was a yes. He also had a kidney stone. That and that's a bone in contention about the medical service, but he also had a kidney stone that he was going to need a major operation on, and within a year things had totally flipped around. Now 3 years later, he's actually ended up at the young age of 50 something. He's actually ended up going into another martial art called Nat Nam, which we'll also talk about as well, and that's through Nat Nam he's actually discovered being vegetarian. But we'll start off on the Qigong trail. So turn your mic back on for now, Fred. So Fred, tell us the story. How did we meet?
Right, well, we met by, I would say, by divine intervention. I'm I'm a product of 1960s medical technology, in the fact that I was affected by a drug called thalidomide. You may or may not have heard of this, right? It caused random mutations in babies. The government at the time stated that though they knew this, it wasn't financially viable to remove it from the market at the time. Now, I was one of the lucky ones. I got my arms and legs. I was got my outside. However, my body didn't grow internally from my waist down. So I had no lower intestinal tract. I had no anus. I was given 2.5 hours at birth because I was poisoning myself. Out of sheer luck, I was taken to a hospital where the only surgeon in the world that had ever done the surgery I had happened to be on call when I got there. They upgraded my life expectancy from 2.5 hours to 35 to 40. Well, I'm now 54. Now, when I was at Oxford University 25, 30 years ago, I met one of my lecturers practiced a thing called Qigong. And I said to him, William, could you teach me? So he'd spent 5 years in a Tibetan monastery learning various healing techniques. And Qigong was among these techniques that he trained. So I trained with him for about 5 years. However, he was eventually offered a professorship at Hull University. He naffed off the Hull, and I didn't have anybody else. Ever since then, I've been searching for another Qigong practitioner that does it correctly. Now, I treat a number of martial artists I've treated over the years, very senior, 7th Dan black belts. However, all of them have their schools have all been, unfortunately, based on just teaching people how to hit each other. This is what people want. People don't want to learn to sit and meditate for 2.5 hours. People don't want to learn to do standing steak. People just want to learn to hit each other. Now, as I say, this is very common, and there's lots and lots and lots of practitioners out there you can find doing taekwondo, various other techniques, but it was very difficult. I could not find another Qigong practitioner. For start, somebody who actually knew what Qigong was in the first place, and secondly, was able to do it to any level of excellence. Out of sheer luck, I was in trouble. I'd reached a point whereby, due to my deformation, which included I'm missing a vertebra in my lower lumbar back, and I have deformation of the main arteries down my leg, femoral arteries. This led to a degeneration, neuropathic pain, and particularly on my right side, degeneration of my right knee capsule. And at the time when I actually met Paul, I was worse than actually a walking stick. I was actually on a walking frame, and my mobility was extremely poor. Didn't affect my work because I could stand there long enough to be able to do a back, treat a patient. However, it was, as I say, they give me a life expectancy 35 to 40, so I think I'm doing quite well being at 54. And then I met Paul, and it was sheer luck. One night I was just sitting in front of him, and I thought, I'm going to look for another Qigong practitioner. Literally like that. Went online and looked for Tai Chi, because Tai Chi is one of a similar type of practice. And the very last person on the list, the very last number on the list of people, I thought I'll try that one. And that's how I met Boggy. And I actually said, I'll come over. How do you teach? Where's your school, etc.? I'll come to you. He said, no. He said, that's all right. He said, I'll come to you. And he did. And we were sitting there talking about what I'd done and my history, my medical conditions, etc. And I thought that the object of the exercise that Paul came around was to check me out, see whether I was worthy to be a student of his. However, I quickly found out that no, what he also was checking me out as to what I could do. And he found that, yeah, my philosophies are along the same area as his. That what you got to do is you've got to look at the whole. You've got to look at the person, not the condition. We don't treat conditions anymore. We don't treat people. We just treat conditions. You don't treat a person. You got a lower back treatment. You got an upper neck problem. It's not the same anymore, and it was very difficult finding anybody. Boggy's been the only person I've managed to find in 25 years who actually looks at the body as a system, and that you've got to look at the systems and work at the systems to achieve the result. The result is, yeah, 4 years later, I'm as I say, doing another martial art, one of my latest apprentice. I've been looking again for years and years for apprentices, and it's very, very difficult to find nowadays anybody that has the commitment to be able to do help people, whatever the cost, whatever the needs, whatever they need, find out what they need, find a solution. And over the years, I've only found 5, 6 people who were actually worth doing. I got one, as I say, I got one apprentice. He was originally a patient. He was then studied with me for over 8 years. He's now fully qualified. He's out there doing exactly the same thing as I am. And earlier this year, in February, I was contacted by a young man who done the osteopathic course and got all the diplomas, right, fully qualified, right, never actually worked on a patient, because under the new rules and regs, you can't treat a patient till you're qualified. Therefore, what you have is you have a model who is pretending to have the condition that you're supposed to be learning to treat, which is pretty much equivalent to learning to do a jet fighter on the computer and then thinking to shoot off to Verizon Norton and take out an F-15. It just doesn't work the same. So he was told by one of his lecturers to find a master and look for an apprenticeship. And he's actually from Lithuania, and he looked around for a month. He looked around on the internet. He looked around here in England. He looked in Lithuania. He even looked in Russia, because he get connection in Russia. Could not find a master until one day, one of his NAM trainees, his father happened to be a patient of mine. So he said to him, "Come and see Fred. Come and see Freddie Bleach. He's the guy to see." And he came to me. He's also head coach of the NAM Federation. So same as with Boggy, I said, okay, you teach me, I'll teach you. Because it's always teaching, there's always learning, there's always something we can improve. By combining Boggy's skills with mine, we've improved both of our abilities, both of our strengths, and worked on these things from a holistic point. This has achieved an improvement all the way around. For me, I pass this on to my patients, and it works well. As I say, yeah, Paul hasn't met most of my patients because they haven't been back. I mean, we treated a guy today who I last saw last year. I see him maybe once a year. That's pretty much all it should be. Most of the time, if you got the environment right, if you got the understanding right, then 9 times out of 10, your body can actually deal with most of what's going on, including fractured spines, including broken necks. All of these things your body can achieve. What your body can't do, however, is once you've had surgical intervention, this is then beyond your body's ability to deal with it. There's nothing you can do. Once they've taken the disc out, cut a disc out, fuse the bone together, which is the common answer to a disc problem. The tissue deteriorates, the bone comes down on the disc, that squishes the disc bulges out into the nerve canal, the patient gets pain. What's our answer? We do what's called a discotomy, which is where we go in, we cut off the bits of disc that are hanging out either side, and we fuse the bone together. None of that addresses why the disc was being crushed in the first place. The result is over 80% of all people that undergo surgical correction of spinal problems represent within 2 years, over 80%, because invariably with the next disc up. because you haven't dealt with why the problem happened. And as I say, big money's involved with that. Big companies. Why look at GlaxoSmithKline. I mean, they came up. They came up with the cure for. Do you remember Tamiflu, for the cure for swine flu? Yep, they used a promotional. Do you know, between October and December of that year, SmithKline, Bleach and SmithKline made over £800 million profit, simply by putting adverts on the TV, frightening everybody that they're going to die of swine flu. Now it turns out, years later, actually Tamiflu didn't work. It didn't do anything whatsoever. Right, that's life, isn't it, really?
Right, Fred, try to sit still a bit, because I don't know, you two nod. For me, you're breaking up. You lose a couple of words. Is that happening for you guys? No.
Just,
no, I was hearing them fine.
Occasionally, it's not a big deal. I can hear what's being said, so there's continuity of flow. It's just the occasional little
words. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah, but yeah. So yeah. Just try not to wobble about, because every time you seem to go forward for me, I was losing one or two words. There was one or two words losing. So yeah. So yeah, the whole thing with like this interesting thing with operations. If the operation stage, there is, you do get even in Qigong. I can get people who I've done people with Qigong operations like Fred, and then 6 weeks, give me 9 weeks, and them willing to do the exercises. I can help them help themselves. You know, there's a lot of issues that that can be resolved with Qigong, physical, emotional, even not to mental health issues can be helped at least with Qigong energy exercises. Fred, and what was the demo you did?
Demo?
No, demo? I thought I'd say demo, and you'd remember straight away.
Yes. Earlier this year, I went to basically what was a martial arts boot camp, right? Of which I was the oldest person there. And amongst other things, put it on Facebook Live. If anybody wants to join my Facebook, you'll see it on Facebook, because we're at Facebook Live. Using Qigong, using the knowledge and the teachings that Paul has given me, I managed to walk on a bed of nails, walk on broken glass, and even walk on 4 upturned razor sharp sabers. Now, this was one of the things that I have gained, one of the knowledges that I've gained, one of the abilities that I've gained through the practice of Qigong, through using energy, the way energy works. I've been a practitioner, as I said, all my life, right? And I've had one major question all my life: why do we stand up? Why are the only species that stands up all the time? I mean, any species out there that needs to stand up can do. I mean, a dog can stand on its end, a horse can stand on its rear legs, a bear stands up. All these creatures, a meerkat stands up, whether it's for defense, food, mating, whatever. All of these species can do it. How come we stand upright? It's never made any sense to me, because if you look at the spine, laying on your front, on your hands and knees, your back is an arch. Arch is a substructure. That's why build bridges and arches, right? But it's an arch with an arch going the other way at one end, your neck, an arch going the other way at the other end, your lower back. So now you've got an arch with suspension, really good four-footed structure. However, stand that structure up on end. Bend a coat hanger, the shape of your back. Now put some weight on it. Right, weakest point, middle of the longest curve. Straight mechanics. Okay, next weakest point, lower your back, where you got a curve going one way, meets a curve going the other. Weak point. Base of your neck, where you got a curve going one way, meeting a curve going the other way. Base of your spine, where you got a curve meeting a flat plate at the bottom, the sacrum. top of your neck, where your head sits on your neck, and your head doesn't actually sit in the middle. I mean, where they put the Frankenstein bolts, that's the logical place, because it's in the middle. We don't. We mount at the back, right? So mechanically, it's a very poor idea to actually be standing up. And whereas most traits are developed over eons to enhance the ability of the species to be able to survive. So you live in a really hot country, you get a dark skin. You're an Eskimo, you don't get facial hair. All of these things were for specific reasons, for environmentally being able to survive in an environment. However, I've never understood up to the point where I started learning and practicing Qigong why we stand upright. We stand upright due to the energy flows, the way that energy works, the way that sinusoidal fields work. They tend to work better with standing up. And this can be, as far as I'm concerned, the only logical reason why, as a species, we stand up all the time, because otherwise it makes no sense. It's no benefit to us at all. If in fact it's problematic, it's why people get back problems. You got 5 weak spots, nothing you can do about that. It's mechanics.
Now, I've got a question for you. So we're talking about the kind of Qigong and energy side, and you talk about the why a lot. From your experience, potentially an emotional or an energetic, what you might call blockage component to some of the pain that we feel as human beings, or is it usually purely mechanical? Or do our emotions contribute to the why, and does our energy flow? You know, people talk about chakras and that sort of thing. Are those contributing factors to the amount of pain we might experience? And is it important to look at the emotions and the energy? Or from your perspective, is it really get the mechanics right and the pain will just be sorted?
No, it's a combination of both. You need to get all the factors. It's the same with treating the spine. You can't treat just bits of it. Same with people. You can't treat just bits of them. Emotional distress causes what's termed structural hypertension. Again, this is where muscles go into spasm. Restrict blood supply. Restriction of blood supply affects chemical flow through the body. The gentleman I spoke to you about, that's actually one of my trainees who is now fully qualified. Yeah, when he first came to me, this guy was excessively violent. He had beaten 2 people to death. He had taken out 11 police officers, killed a police dog, and the other dog ran away. It took 15 coppers on top of him to strip him naked, pin him to the floor, and handcuff his hands and feet to stop him. Right? This guy was immensely violent. He came to me. He was so violent when he came to me, my assistant at the time wouldn't even stay in a room with him. Right? I put one bone right in his neck, and the guy's crying on my shoulder saying sorry. When he trapped this bone in his neck, he described as he lost all the colours, everything went black. It's just pure rage, right? And this is an extreme example. However, it is a definite example of what I've also researched myself, looking at things like TV shows where they're showing sort of what's going on in the world's hardest prisons, you know, Ross Kemp, stuff like that. You look at the people, how they're standing, the angles of their shoulder, you see they're wrong. People, I've spoken to patients of mine who are social workers, who have said to me, well, it's strange you say that, Fred, because I've known people who were perfectly peaceful and they suddenly turn around and stab their dad to death or something stupid, right? And then afterwards didn't even really know why they did it. It affects the flow through your body. Therefore, yes, your emotions will affect tension. That tension will affect blood supply, particularly in ladies. Ladies work very much on hormonal signals that go up and down each month. That's monthly cycle. That cycle is distributed via the lymphatic system. Muscular spasm in your neck causes what's termed a lymphatic blockade. So chemical signals aren't distributed properly. Sometimes they stop, sometimes then they burst out in bunches. So I've had a patient once, for instance, who paid me just to come and treat his wife once a month, because of the fact that just by doing that, he found he got a lot less arguments at home. This is true. I mean, this is totally kosher, right? Yes. So yes, yeah, your emotions will affect it. Yes, the energies that you bring around you will affect it. Everything, it's part of the whole component, and you've got to look at the whole component. We are more than just physical bodies. What makes you you? You can take, I mean, with modern science, you can take a person apart down to the subatomic level and examine them. They still can't tell you what's you, what makes you you. One of the biggest things I learned at Oxford is that we know lots and lots of what's, very little whys. There's 7 systems keep your heart beating. One main system, which is the vagus X, as you mentioned before, right, regulates metabolism. There's 6 emergency backups, right the way down to a pacemaker cell that's built into the wall of your heart that will keep your heart beating about 4 beats a minute. Won't keep you awake, but it'll keep you alive, right? Now, all of these I could describe in electrical terms, in physiological terms, all the complete workings of the heart and how this electrical signal travels around the heart like lightning traveling around the side of something as the electrical stimulus goes on. There isn't anybody can tell you why you're alive, what makes you you, what makes Boggy, what makes him. Nobody can tell you that. It's energy. It's energy related. So we are a combination of these 2 parts. We are a combination of the energy and the physical in the same existence. And therefore, as we're looking at a spine as a complete unit, you got to look at the person as a complete unit. That includes the energies that surround them.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I'll add mine a little bit. Yeah, it's all about the 3 ones: mind, body, and spirit. It's interesting. And what with ClickChi is that I can look at the body. Fred looks at the body and he can see, he can see out. I look at the body and I can see certain emotions. I can see certain. I can see the tendons. I can see the muscles. I can see if you're. I can feel certain things in the body. So tension in the neck between the head and the neck is an indication that what you believe and what you can achieve, you're struggling to do. Is that when you have a tension in the neck, is that you have all these ideas, but you're struggling to manifest them into reality. Tension in the shoulders can mean a certain thing. Tension, issues and problems in the knees mean a certain thing. So even though, like, we say, oh well, how can a organ represent an emotion? But in 5-element theory, it does. Your organs, you have the 5-element theory in Taoism and in Chinese medicine. And you have an element. Each element represents at least 2 organs. That organs represent also, or that element also an emotion, which can represent at least a taste, or at least 2 tastes. It even represents a sound of voice. So these elements, therefore, when you hear something in a person, it means this or that. Or when for liver problems are wood energy, so liver, that can also indicate that person may have a lot of a doubt, a lot of fear. They may actually be sighing a lot. There's certain things, certain organs represent certain things. In Oriental diagnosis, your face, which is Middle Eastern diagnosis, your face is your person. You can actually read somebody's personality and their character through their face. In Oriental diagnosis, you can actually read their organ structure. What organs are they likely to have issues with within their face? So, how does that work? How is that possible? Everything, the part represents the whole. Quantum physics. Everything represents something else. So you can see one thing and you can affect one thing through something else. You can, the great thing I love about 5-element cooking, food herbs as medicine. We see chemicals as medicine, but food is medicine. You can heal somebody by changing their diet. And we're not talking about losing weight, and because we have this whole thing about fads, but actually what they eat, when they eat it, and where they are eating affects their body. So certain diets are better in certain climates than other climates, and that another thing. So it's all about mind, body, spirit. It's all about the free ones. It's all about the free, not 3, 2, 1, not dusty bin, but the free ones. It's all about the free ones. Yeah, I for those who know what I'm talking about, 3, 2, 1, dusty bin. But anyway, I digress.
You're showing your age now, Boggy. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know. I know. Have we another question?
Yeah, can I ask, it's a nice segue into my question, actually. How do you feel now that you've gone vegetarian? How do you feel, like, in your body and your being and your soul and your whatever, you know, in every different way? How have you felt the change in your experience? You're sat now, yeah?
Yeah, I found the change to be very, very positive. And I've had other patients of mine say to me, your face looks clearer, your eyes look clearer. Years and years ago, I mean, when I was young, being vegetarian was way sort of out on the extreme. I mean, you couldn't get a great deal of stuff. I mean, nowadays you can get coconut milk all the time. You can shoot down to Tesco's and get a can of coconut cream. You couldn't do this back in the day. I mean, I made soup today for my seafood, vegetable and tofu soup. It's remarkably empowering. It's remarkably engaging. I started being vegetarian from the aspect of physical health, and it has very much helped my physical health. I found that I've got greater energy stores, and I was, as Paul said, a big maintainer of physiologically, and that's in the basis of anatomy and physiology. We are designed to be omnivorous, which means we're designed to eat meats as well as vegetables. However, one of the things I recently come across was a result of a study done in China over a period of 25 years. Now, one of the problems you get is that in UK medicine, the studies are done within very small groups of people within in comparison to the rest of the world. So, like, we got the results from 1,000 people or the results from 500 people. You know, even, I mean, you see on TV adverts, 88% of 44 people agreed. I mean, 44 people, you can get that many signatures standing at a local bus stop. It's no way is it a good indication of what's going on within the environment as such. However, the results of a 25-year study show very conclusively that a diet that contains more than a ratio of 20% to 80% meat to vegetable leads to an 85% increase in risk of both coronary heart disease and cancers. Below that level of 20%, it reduces. Below 5%, they've got cases of people actually spontaneously recovering. Right? Now, you look across the map of China for the results of this, yeah, and they've got what they call the 50-mile belt, right, which contains the major ports and cities on the coast of China, and incidence of coronary heart disease and cancers are pretty high, right? You go into the center of China, what's cancer? We don't know. We've never had what's cancer like. What's coronary heart disease? You got people training martial arts at 110 years old that like would kick your ass without even trying. You know, how come? Well, there is a definite correlation with diet, with vegetarianism. I spent the week at this martial arts boot camp, as I say, where I was walking on broken glass, walking on nails, walking on sabers, right? And that was even better. I mean, there was one person there actually standing on just one saber per foot, right? And without a problem. Now, this means changing your environment. This means changing you. There is a very strong thing that I've always known, and that I've tried to work as hard as I can to be able to understand. And this is the concept that the world is a product of what you perceive it to be. Everything means what it means to you, not what it means to me. The big mistake people make is thinking that because that's the way they would think, then that's how somebody else is going to think. No, it don't work that way, right? So if the world is a product of what you perceive it to be, you can change something. Sometimes you need a discipline or a course of action or something to allow you to perceive this, to allow you to believe this is so. So you go out and exercise lots and lots and lots, and you perceive yourself as fitter. Well, actually, you can just perceive yourself as fitter. The same thing. This has become a very good part of my life, in the fact that, as I say, I shouldn't even be here. I should have been dead. I should have been dead 15 years ago. Right? I'm a medical anomaly. As to what you're saying about the kidney stone, it's been 3 years since I was diagnosed with a kidney stone, 21 millimeter, right, in my kidney. Now, physiologically, that's at least a third of my kidney size, right? I'm supposed to be in agony. I'm supposed to be doubling over in pain. I should be getting urinary tract infections left, right, and centre, right? No, none of it, right? And as to the medical point, I have now been through 4 pre-ops. No date for an operation, 4 pre-ops, right? The third pre-op, the nurse said, "Nah, I won't do it. Well, you haven't got a pre-op. It costs £2,000 to do, and it's only any good for 4 weeks. So unless you've got a scheduled surgery, then it's a waste of time." So she actually refused to do the third pre-op. Amazingly, I got a point for 4th pre-op. And I went up, I said, "Well, why for 4th pre-op? What's the point?" And do you know what the answer was? "So that we can get you onto the 2017 books, because we have to do this for the system." No, not because I'm healthy, not because I've got a 21 millimeter kidney stone that's supposedly supposed to be causing me vast amounts of damage. Simply and utterly so that they could tick on the books that I've been addressed within 2017. And I mean, what chance you got with a system works that way?
Indeed.
Greetings,
Right, guys.
Chris. Sorry, didn't say hello to Chris.
Hello, Fred. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, hi, Chris. How you doing?
Good evening, Chris. How was your Tai Chi?
Very good, thank you. Feel very chilled out and relaxed now.
That's good. That's good. So me and Robbie are here. That'll soon change. But
no, you cannot destroy my calm. You cannot destroy my centre.
I've got bulldozer with your name on it, Chris, and Robbie's brought the TNT, so all is good. So no, it's all good. So yeah, I mean it's nice. It's nice to hear those stories and see, you know, with Fred, he's seen the change, the dramatic change. And this, when we talk about the vegetarianism, this was the one thing I've this. I mean, I'm more of a pescatarian. I eat fish, but this thing in China, you go into mainland China, have cancer. Cancer is not an issue. It's not an epidemic, as they would call what, you know, for them looking in the West, they would say it's an epidemic. You know, it's a big problem that we're dealing with. They literally don't have it. And this diet, this like say 18% meat, is actually the sort of a Taoist diet. You know, it's this whole point is that the majority, a good 53 to 58% of your should be raw to lightly steamed or lightly cooked veg, and that's because of the enzymes present in raw, mainly like veg rather than say fruit. On the veg front, it should be mainly leafy green vegetables to vegetables, 53 to 58%, because it's the enzymes that will help break the rest of the food down. And then having some meat, but not a lot of meat. And also, this is some funny thing in China where if you are going to eat meat, you have to eat it all. In essence, what I mean, in China, you'll get a lot of pig skin soup and or pig intestines, pig's ears. They use everything. Not one single thing is wasted. So funny enough, it means that in the cities you get a lot of people that will eat that, but in the countryside they'll far rather be vegetarians, which I always found quite amusing, but that's a personal thing. But yes, there has always been this information that in China they do not get the illnesses that we get. Some of that is to do with nationally, you have to do Qigong. You have to do Qigong or dance or a form of exercise every single day to get your national health in China. If you don't do it, if you do have an operation, instead of it being 6 weeks, it will take 9 months. Penalised, you're not punished as such, you're penalised for not being healthy, because their viewpoint is if you're not doing daily exercises, then you're not actually looking after yourself. So if you're not looking after yourself, why should we put you at the top of the list? So there is this different viewpoint, and the whole in ancient China with the dragon dog shaman and the barefoot doctors was this thing of the barefoot doctor was paid. You pay the doctor while you're healthy. If you're ill, he's not doing his job. The doctor would see you for about 15 minutes every week. And the cool thing in China is you actually have doctors. Some of the doctors would actually be stationed at restaurants, at cafes, because everybody goes for food, and you would actually see the doctor at the cafe, and he would say, "Oh, you do your tongue and checks your pulse." Or your pulses, because they have more than one pulse in China. They have different pulses in traditional Chinese medicine. And then if you needed something, he would give prescription to the chef, and the chef would create your meal according to what you energetically need. Other thing in
let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food. Yeah.
Indeed, very much so. Yeah. So obviously, surprise, little digression there. But so, guys, have we got any other questions for Fred?
I just want to congratulate you. It's not a question. Sorry, Marilyn, I beg your pardon. I just want to congratulate you. I think that's a brilliant success story, Even you overcoming everything from the thalidomide all the way through to being in your 50s, and overcoming what they've said that you were going to do, And a lot of that it's negligence, and it's just about money, and it's the whole system about drugs and big pharma and all the rest of it. But congratulations, well done. You're really inspiring. That's fantastic, and all power to your elbow, and just keep going. Fantastic, good for you. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
I've always said to Fred, because like Fred originally was told, he hadn't got much longer to live, sort of thing, and I'm saying, I'm supposed to be living to 252. If I've got to live that long, I'm bringing other people for the ride.
Yeah, I'm going to have some for me.
Medically,
I was told that
medically, I'm classified as disabled. So.
You're doing really well. You're doing really well, man. Fantastic. Yeah, it's really inspirational. Yeah.
Qigong's made the difference. It's changed my life, and I ain't going back. That's that. I'm working on moving on. You can only move forward. Life is a process of learning, and I've been told that one of the things I'm termed what is termed a polymath, which means I can learn from everything, and I do. and I constantly learn. One of the things with Qigong, with difference between Qigong and Nat Nam, Qigong you have Sifu, which means teacher, father. It means a number of things. It embraces a number of concepts. With Nat Nam, I'm considered a master because I'm a master of what I can do. I don't classify myself as a master. The reason I don't, yeah, I'm very good at what I'm doing, and I know I'm very good at what I'm doing, but the term master to me means you're there, you've reached the top. It's like being first Dan black belt. That's not the end. There's more. And as soon as you limit yourself, and that's what it comes down to, you limiting yourself. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit what you think you can do. Trust me, there isn't anything that's, I've run out. I mean, the word impossible I gave up 3 years ago. It just don't apply, even medically. And as I say, I'm very scientific. I know anatomy, physiology, right the way down. Still, as far as I said, nothing is impossible if you do it correctly, if you understand why. And yeah, carry on, work on. Bang.
Marilyn, you had a question.
Yeah, just
Before
a
you were
quick one. In
rudely
terms of the kind of food and
interrupted.
nutrition, I am definitely a lifelong learner. And one of the things I'm exploring at the moment is the impact of the quality of the water that we have. And, you know, the pH levels, the alkalinity versus the acidity. And so in your travels, and this is a question to both of you, is that an area that you have also looked at in terms of being able to regulate the body and assist the body in its healing and its flushing out of toxins and all of that sort of stuff? Because it's another one that I'm finding myself more and more fascinated by the more I look into it. So I'd love, if you have any thoughts about it, I'd love to just hear a little bit about that from the nutrition side as well.
Cool. Right, from my knowledge and my research I've done into it, we have both here in England, we both one of the best qualities of water in the world, right? I mean, I've been to America. I wound up with dodgy tummy, and it turned out what it was, I was brushing my teeth with tap water. Even that was enough to give me a stomach problems. Now, there's only one major problem with water supplies in the UK, and that is a concern with the usage of aluminium.
God bless.
And the problem with aluminium is that aluminium has been proved to collect in the brainstem and basically electronically shorts it out. Now, aluminium is used by every water company in the country bar one, which is the water companies in Norfolk and North Norfolk. And in Britain, we use aluminium. It makes the water look pretty. That's all it does. Nothing else. It makes it look pretty. And that has been, aluminium has been connected with Alzheimer's and various forms of dementia because it collects in the brain. Now, at the moment, this was a major incident some years ago in Devon where they accidentally dumped a load of aluminium oxide in the water system, accidentally. People's hair was turning green, but more importantly, people were dying left, right, and centre. People were coming in for dialysis and dying, right? This is because the vast amounts of aluminium. However, a government inquiry headed by a lady, and I can't remember what her name was, one major lady from the House of Lords, took exactly 24 hours to look at all the information and all the reports and say, nah, aluminium's got nothing to do with it whatsoever. So officially, aluminium doesn't cause a problem. However, logically, electronically, and physiologically, it does. And that's the only problem with that I would have with, say, British water supplies, is the fact that, yeah, we use aluminium in our water filtration. There's no need to, we don't have to, but it makes it sell better, and it's as simple as that. Apart from that, no. I drink bottled water merely from the point of view that it doesn't have that same process of treatment.
Okay. Any more I think we might wrap this one up. So, any more questions before we go? I know you're a late starter. Is there anything that sort of since you've been here? Anything?
Given all of your experiences, Fred, and everything that's happened to you in life, all of the ups and downs, the adventures you've been through, the emotional ups, the emotional downs, would you, looking back now, change any of it for any reason, or would you change none of it?
I'd change none of it, because where I am now is a product of everything that's happened to me throughout my life. And I'm divorced. I had a bad marriage breakup. My ex-missus ran away with a frigging drug dealer and took the kids with her. I've been an alcoholic. I've been a cocaine addict. You name it, I've done it. But no, I wouldn't change anything, because you can't. Just one little change can make a difference to your entire life. And yeah, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm working on, I'm learning, I'm improving, I'm helping people. Patients get off of my couch and they're out of pain. Today, literally, a patient said, I said, oh, I'm going out to Lithuania for my one of my trainees, Animus, his wedding, right? He said, oh, you're not going away long, are you? I mean, Paul Boggy was there when he said it. He said, oh, I hope you're not going away. What happens if I hurt my back? Literally, I've got patients that look at me in that way. And being able to take somebody who's in pain and can't see any way out, and being able to show them a way out, and being able to help them, being able to heal them, being able to show them how to help themselves, giving that basic knowledge, because as I say, it's not vast medical knowledge you need, it's basic knowledge. It's very logical. Think about everything I said tonight. Think about it. Okay? Don't just believe me, question me. Think about it. It all makes logical sense. This is great. I can't think of a better thing. I mean, I've got a little girl, 22 months old. She came to me. She's now 15 years old, sweet as a nut. That's job satisfaction. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing from a council house in Hayes, instead of being in a practice in Harley Street, screwing over people for £300 an hour, just taking off the bones where the nerve pinch is, so I can take your pain away. But leave the rest of it there, because you don't know it's there. And next week when the pain comes back, you'll come back. And next week when the pain comes back, you come back. We had a patient come to us, quoted £4,273 up front for 36 treatments over a 6-month period. What a load of cobblers. And you know, if you ain't got, can you imagine if you were bleeding for 6 months, you'd be doing something about it a lot sooner than that. But we're indoctrinated to believe what these people say. And yeah, I help people. I've got people that, as I say, I've changed their lives for the better. And I'm continuing to do so, and I'll be continuing to do so to the day I die. My dad died 4 hours after his last patient. And in my opinion, that's the way I want to go. And there you go. That's the way it goes.
That's wonderful. That's
really wonderful.
Yeah, because you've got that being of service to others. That you know your path. So I mean, that's a wonderful sentiment you shared there. Thank you.
Indeed. And as I said, I if I've got to live to 252, you're the only guy who can fix my back, so you ain't going anywhere, mate. You're going to be around for a lot longer yet to come. So, got any more questions before we wrap this up?
Not questions per se, but I just wanted to say, you know, thank you. It's been a really enlightening evening, a very inspirational evening, and you know, just hearing about some of your case studies as well and the things that you've done, it's just wonderful. So, you know, thank you so much for sharing.
That's fantastic. That's what I aim to do, and we'll continue doing, and we'll continue, and Boggy will continue bringing these videos out and keeping these podcasts going, because people need to know. People need to know you don't have to depend on the bankers. You don't have to depend on the doctor. You don't have to even say, oh dear. I mean, latest trick with doctors, they diagnose you with a condition that's only surgically, medically accepted, that is only surgically correctable. They give you painkillers for the next 6 months till you get really, really bad. Then they refer you to their surgeon, who's being paid thousands of pounds to do an operation, and gives them a little bit of a tip for passing the person on to him. Disgusting, immoral. That's what I say. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, that's life. Got to deal with it.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, so as the great man has already said, I mean, it's, as always, it was a great show yet again. Thank you for being there when I needed you to pop up. I mean, yeah, our stuff, ClickG, is a good combination of what we do. I found you. It took me is to find somebody to do what I was learning from my teachers, and so, you know, in the show it was a great irony that we sort of found each other. So it's a great honour and pleasure to know you and to be your friend and to have you as a student as well as to have you as my seafood. So as always, I'd like to say thank you very much, and thank you very much for being on the show tonight. It's great to, you know, I loved the fact we did it as a little twist. You know, yeah, we did the back stuff again, but also, you know, actually doing about the whole Qigong, your version of Qigong and your version about vegetarianism as well. So it's really cool. So thank you very much, Fred. As
Thank
always,
you for the invite. I'm glad that there was a little hole where I could step in and be here tonight. Lovely talking to all of you. I'm glad Chris has come back on. It's a shame the other gentleman has had to leave. And all the best to all of you. Thank you very much. Love, Chi, and Shen.
What he said. So take care. I'd like to say, well, do you want to say anything, Marilyn, Chris? Do you want to say anything to wrap up the show?
No, I'm good. I'm sure you'll wrap it up in a succinct way.
Indeed.
Yeah, and it's just thanks from me. You know, I did grow up with the two Ronnies, so good night from him, good night from me. So
Indeed,
thank you.
Yeah, I very much love the two Ronnies, and yeah. We digress. I digress. So hope you enjoyed the show. We have next week. We do have another guest, and it is, trying to remember off the top of my head. Did I leave it on? Right, here's a bit of a tongue twister for me. It is Juan Jose Sivos. And the show will...
Is that Jose?
Yes. I hope, yes, what he said. Jose then. Dyslexia is a wonderful thing. And the show next week will be All Profits, Consciousness, Spiritual Awakening, and Stable Civilization. So it is an interesting one. So listen in to next week's show. So take care. It's goodbye from the great Chris Glutton.
Goodbye.
Huh. He spoke. It's goodbye from the wonderful Agent 35, aka Marilyn Devonish.
Goodbye. Good evening. Thank you for joining us.
It's goodbye from Robino, the great Robbie McKenzie. But he can't actually talk, makes a change because he's not actually here. But and then finally, it's goodbye from the mighty Backman himself, Fred Bleach.
Good night. Love each other. Peace.
Cool. Indeed. So take care. Bye for now. Chi and Shen from the way of conscious mindfulness.